Hi there, and welcome to MiWeek. I'm Christy McDonald. Joining me at the table are MiWeek regulars Nolan Finley of the Detroit News, Stephen Henderson of the Detroit Free Press. Hey guys, we were off on vacation last week, but we are back now for a full show. Coming up, an insider look at the Detroit mayoral primary just a few weeks away. 8 candidates on the ballot. The biggest challenge to Mayor Mike Duggan. State Senator Coleman Young announced this week his big plan for the city if he's elected. We'll see if it's getting some traction. Plus, we'll look at the business incentives deal that passed this week in Lansing after some serious arm twisting. Also coming up, the headlines getting our attention. Donald Trump Jr.'s emails, Detroit Public School, debates authorizing charters, and so much more. So let's get started and bring in Stephen and Nolan. Hey guys, one person who's not running for the mayor of Detroit, he should be running for our U.S. Senate, would be Kid Rock. I'm very excited to. Are you excited to get behind that campaign there, Nolan?
I think politics has gotten a lot more interesting in the last few years.
Yeah, I think it's just a stunt, but I think it was very funny. All of a sudden, my Twitter blew up yesterday afternoon with that picture of Kid Rock sitting on his couch. I
think it's not coincidental that he is opening the Little Caesars Arena in, what, a few weeks.
You guys, have you ever seen a Kid Rock show?
No. I have. I've seen two, both of them at Republican conventions.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. You
I saw it in Tampa and in Cleveland. It's a pretty good show. But the question is now, will Mike Ilitch and the Little Caesars Arena people have to give equal time to Stabenow, Bob Young, Lena Epstein?
Maybe. I mean, I'd go to those concerts. I'd go to those concerts.
To get a concert series. They're playing under new rules now.
Hey, I gotta say, Kid Rock puts on a pretty good show, and I think this is just another part of his propaganda. No, it's not for children.
It's not for black people.
All right, that's something we could also get into at another date. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the mayor's race right now. Coleman Young came out this week with his plans for the city of Detroit should he be elected. This has been a pretty quiet election so far. Nolan, I'm going to let you take a first crack at this one.
Well, basically his plan is, call 1-800, I'll sue you. I mean, his answer to everything was, well, I'll sue them, and I'll sue them, and then I'll sue these other people.
He's talking about auto insurance.
He's going to sue the state. He's going to sue the insurers. He's going to sue everybody. That's really not a plan. It's not a good leadership vision for Detroit, and I think it's probably the best he's got, but I don't believe this is going to be any sort of contest. And
he also talked about residency, changing the residency requirements for police and fire. What about that?
Great idea, except that the Supreme Court of this state has said you can't do it. So again, how does Coleman Young the second propose to get that done? I mean, what was, I thought, substantively interesting about his plan was that it exposed his greatest weakness. This is not somebody who has a lot of policy depth, who thinks a lot about how to enact policy and then see it make the change that he wants. He is somebody who gives tremendous voice to legitimate concerns that people have in the city, and I think that is his strength, is that he can identify with the people who feel left out of the things that are going on. But you have to take that and say, here's what I would do as mayor that would make these things different. And that's a policy question, and lawsuits aren't policy. Tilting at windmills that are erected by the Supreme Court is not policy. These are just sort of teasers out there to get people excited about the idea that things could change, but it's not a real path towards it.
So he should forget mayor and run for president.
So it's interesting. Right? He keeps making the charge, and you said this, that the people have been forgotten, and he says people in neighborhoods have been forgotten under the Doug administration. Is that a fair charge for him to make, or does he need to go beyond that simple statement when he's running?
Yeah, no, I don't think it's an unfair charge that Duggan has forgotten them. I think the challenges and problems in the neighborhoods and the degree of decay and deterioration that's happening in the neighborhoods are so great that it is going to take a long time for people to start seeing a difference, no matter what Duggan or any other mayor does. I think the mayor is probably as frustrated as anyone that you can't get at the nut of those problems. People keep leaving. The schools aren't getting any better. And, bullets keep flying around. It's a very difficult task first to stabilize and then to start improving.
Well, and it's going to take a little time too. I mean, you do have a new superintendent with the Troy Public Schools, and people will be watching that this fall as well. Stephen, let me ask you this: Is it strange that there isn't more conversation about the mayor's race? That you don't have two candidates that are very close here? That everyone's just kind of like, well, this is very quiet.
Well, so I actually think that Coleman Young is trying to save some of his, his powder for the general, right? I mean, he doesn't have a ton of money, I don't think. He can't really sustain, a months-long campaign. I think his hope is to, get to the primary, get over the finish line there, and then I think we'll see something a little more engaged. And I think he will, I think he'll be pretty aggressive in attacking Mike Duggan and talking about the things that haven't quite panned out the way that we thought they would yet. But again, he's got to translate that into, actionable and realistic policy imperative. And that's been his weakness his entire career. I mean, I think he's grown a lot as a person and as a politician since he's been in the Senate and come to understand things a lot better. But policy depth is his greatest weakness. This is not somebody who thinks about that in a way that's very appealing.
He hasn't raised a whole lot of money, and so it takes, it takes money in a campaign to get your voice heard and to create the kind of excitement. And Mike Duggan's not spending much money either, but so far he hasn't had to.
Well, it's also the timing, talking about what we're going to see now in the next couple of months.
That's right. I think what would be really interesting would be if he does not finish second in the primary. And I would not necessarily rule that out.
Who else is out there?
I mean, I think there's you've got a lot of people asking for write-ins, and you have no idea. But he's done so little campaigning of his own. I'm not sure how much distance he will be able to put between him and some of the other people who just have name recognition, which is really all he's running.
Now, there's a runoff regardless, right? There's a general election regardless.
Go to the general.
So even if you get over 50%, some other places you don't have a runoff.
Right.
Okay.
All right, well, we'll be watching.